You know, there's a fascinating phenomenon in relationships that many people experience but few truly understand. It's the magnetic, almost invisible pull that can bring an avoidant partner back to the empath who loved them unconditionally. On the surface, it may look like coincidence or worse, like weakness, but in reality, it's much deeper. It's about safety. Avoidants are often misunderstood. People think they don't care or that they just want freedom and independence. And yes, that's true to a degree. But here's the key. Avoidants crave connection. They just struggle to trust it fully. They've built walls around their hearts because vulnerability has, in the past, felt dangerous. Yet when someone comes along who loved them right, without judgment, without chasing, without desperation, something shifts. Something deep inside whispers, here is safety. Here is someone I can let my guard down with. This is why they often return. Not because they want to control you or because they didn't experience pain elsewhere. They return because unconsciously they recognize the rare power of unconditional love. The kind that doesn't push or pull too hard. The kind that simply holds space for them even when they push away. And when they reconnect, it's not always smooth. It can be confusing, messy, and even frustrating, but it's real. But here's the important part for the empath. Recognizing this dynamic doesn't mean you should allow cycles of hurt. It's about understanding the psychology behind their return. It's about seeing the pull of safety for what it is and deciding whether this connection serves your heart as much as it does theirs. Because ultimately, relationships aren't about changing someone. They're about choosing people who feel safe enough for both hearts to grow. And when an avoidant reconnects with someone who loved them right, it's a reminder that true love isn't loud or flashy. It's patient, steady, and quietly magnetic. So if you've ever wondered why they come back, it's not a mystery. And it's not about you doing more or chasing harder. It's about the magnetic pull of safety that only someone who truly understands them can provide. And that's the truth. Sometimes, the people who seem most distant are the ones who can feel the deepest pull toward the love they were shown in its purest form. Many people see avoidance and immediately assume they are cold, distant, or simply uninterested in love. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Avoidants do care. They want connection, intimacy, and love. But they struggle with the way it makes them feel vulnerable. To understand them, you have to step behind the walls they've built, because those walls weren't created out of malice. They were built out of self-protection. Think about it. Someone who has been hurt in the past, emotionally or psychologically, naturally becomes cautious. They've learned that being open can lead to disappointment, rejection, or even feeling like they're drowning in someone else's expectations. So instead of leaping in, they instinctively hold back. What many people don't realize is that this distance isn't a lack of feeling. It's a strategy their mind has developed to feel safe. Avoidants often experience love intensely, but the intensity scares them. It triggers a need to pull away, not because they don't love you, but because deep down they're trying to protect themselves from the vulnerability that love demands. Vulnerability is scary. It's unpredictable, it's risky, and for someone with avoidant tendencies, it can feel like stepping off a cliff without knowing if there's a net. But here's the fascinating part. Avoidants are not immune to emotional pull. In fact, they are constantly observing, assessing, and comparing connections without fully letting it show. They notice who makes them feel secure without suffocating them, who listens without judging, who loves without demanding. These moments of safety resonate deeply because they counteract all the internal messages that have told them connection is dangerous. And this is where the empath comes in. A partner who provides consistency, patience, and understanding can quietly chip away at those walls. It's also worth noting that the avoidant's need for safety doesn't just disappear once it's established. They don't suddenly become reckless with their feelings or plunge headfirst into intimacy. Instead, they approach it carefully, testing the waters, pulling back when anxiety rises, and returning when they feel the space is genuinely safe. To an outsider, it may seem confusing or inconsistent, but to someone who understands them, these patterns are deeply meaningful. They are signs that their heart is engaged, even if their actions sometimes suggest otherwise. The pull of safety is a fundamental human experience, but for avoidants, it is magnified. They are wired to seek protection, predictability, and emotional space, And when they find a partner who can provide that, it creates a magnetic effect. They may not say it outright, but their return to someone who makes them feel safe is often driven by gratitude, relief, and a desire for genuine connection. In essence, the walls aren't barriers to love. They are indicators of how much they need the right environment to feel free enough to love back. One of the most powerful things that draws an avoidant back to someone is the sense of unconditional love that person offers. Now, unconditional love doesn't mean blind tolerance of bad behavior or ignoring red flags. It means a love that doesn't demand, doesn't chase, and doesn't try to control. It's the kind of love that allows the avoidant to breathe, to have space, and to feel accepted exactly as they are. Many avoidants have been in relationships where love came with pressure, expectation, or judgment. Those experiences can leave deep scars and make them hyper-aware of any signals that intimacy might come with strings attached. But when someone loves them right, calmly, consistently, and without neediness, it creates a completely different emotional experience. This type of love doesn't force the avoidant to rush or conform. It doesn't interrogate their feelings or punish them for needing space. Instead, it quietly communicates, "I see you, I value you, I'm here," whether you pull close or step back. That consistency is revolutionary for someone who has spent much of their life feeling like love is conditional. When an avoidant experiences that kind of unwavering, non-judgmental care, it activates a deep sense of relief and safety that they've rarely felt before. It's almost as if the walls they've built aren't just challenged. They start to feel unnecessary because finally there is someone whose love doesn't feel threatening. The empath in particular has a unique role in this dynamic. Empaths naturally sense the avoidant's fears, insecurities, and patterns without needing explanations or arguments. They pick up on emotional cues and respond with empathy rather than criticism, which can feel like a breath of fresh air to someone used to defensive relationships. This attentiveness isn't about control, it's about creating space for connection that is both gentle and reliable. The avoidant begins to notice, often subconsciously, that there's no need to fight, run, or hide their feelings. They can simply exist and they are still loved. That's an experience that changes the rules of engagement for them. It's also worth noting that unconditional love doesn't mean passive. The empath's consistency and clarity set healthy boundaries while maintaining emotional availability. This combination, love that is steady but not suffocating, becomes magnetic. Avoidants are drawn to it not because they feel trapped, but because it fills a void they've carried for years. The void of feeling truly understood and safe in love. They start to see that a relationship doesn't have to be a battle, a chase, or a series of tests. They can simply share space with someone who genuinely cares, and that, paradoxically, encourages them to open up instead of shutting down. Ultimately, the love that draws avoidance back isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, consistent, and patient. It communicates safety, respect, and understanding without demanding anything in return. And when an avoidant reconnects with someone who offers that, it's not because they've suddenly changed or because they were forced to feel something. They return because they've finally encountered love in its purest, most magnetic form. It's love that doesn't threaten them, love that doesn't chase them away, and love that gives them permission to finally be themselves without fear. One of the most intriguing things about avoidance is how often their return to a partner is unconscious. Many people assume that when an avoidant comes back, it's a deliberate, calculated choice. But in reality, much of it happens beneath the surface of their awareness. Avoidants are highly attuned to their own emotions, but they often struggle to articulate them, even to themselves. Their return is rarely about conscious reasoning like, "I miss them," or "I made a mistake." Instead, it's an internal pull. A recognition of something familiar, safe, and uniquely nurturing that they can't easily name. This is why, from the outside, their behavior can feel confusing or even contradictory. When an avoidant reconnects, it's not necessarily because they've been thinking about reconciliation every day. Often, it's because certain experiences or interactions trigger an unconscious memory of emotional safety. They remember the calm, non-judgmental presence that once held space for them, the patience that allowed them to retreat without fear of losing the relationship. their subconscious mind knows that this person represents an emotional environment unlike any other, one where vulnerability doesn't feel like a threat. And that recognition can override logic, schedules, or even other relationships they might not even realize why they feel drawn back. But the pull is undeniable. Avoidants often live in a state of push and pull, balancing the desire for connection with the fear of losing control. When they encounter someone who offered steady love in the past, it disrupts that balance in a subtle, almost magnetic way. They start to feel safe enough to risk being closer, even if just for a moment. And because this process is largely unconscious, their return can feel sudden or unpredictable to the empath. But for the avoidant, it's a response to a deep internal recognition. This is a person who won't overwhelm, who won't demand, who won't force them to be someone they're not. That sense of emotional safety activates a natural gravitation toward the relationship. It's also important to note that this unconscious pull doesn't always guarantee immediate or permanent closeness. Avoidants may test boundaries, retreat when anxiety rises, and oscillate between engagement and distance. But each time they return, even tentatively, it signals that the underlying emotional connection is still powerful. It shows that at some level, they remember the rare experience of being loved in a way that doesn't trigger fear or shame. That memory has a gravitational force, one that often outweighs logic or external circumstances. For the empath, understanding this unconscious mechanism can transform the way they interpret the avoidance behavior. Instead of taking mixed signals personally, they can see that the return isn't about manipulation or fickleness. It's about the avoidant recognizing, often without realizing it, a type of love that feels fundamentally safe. It's a reminder that even people who struggle with closeness are capable of deep emotional recognition, and that the right kind of love can pull them back toward connection no matter how far they've retreated. Ultimately, this unconscious pull is a testament to the power of genuine, steady love. Avoidants may not always understand it, may not always verbalize it, but they feel it. And that feeling is often stronger than fear, distance, or habit. It's a silent, compelling call towards safety and trust that can't easily be ignored. While understanding why avoidance return is important, it's equally critical for the empath to recognize the role of boundaries in these dynamics. Just because an avoidant reconnects doesn't mean the empath should compromise their own emotional well-being or tolerate cycles of pain and confusion. Boundaries are not walls to keep someone out. They're structures that protect your heart while allowing the relationship to exist in a healthy, balanced way. Without them, the pull of an avoidance return can quickly become exhausting, leaving the empath caught between hope and heartbreak. Boundaries serve as a roadmap for both people in the relationship. They communicate what is acceptable, what is not, and where the limits lie without shame, guilt, or resentment. For the avoidant, boundaries are actually a relief. They provide clarity and predictability, two things that avoidants often crave because uncertainty triggers their instinct to pull away. When an empath sets boundaries, the avoidant learns that they can engage in the relationship without being forced or pressured, which paradoxically makes them feel safer and more willing to open up. Boundaries do not push them away. They create the structure that allows for connection. It's also important for empaths to understand that maintaining boundaries doesn't mean they stop loving or caring. On the contrary, boundaries are an expression of self-respect and self-awareness. They signal to the avoidant that the empath values themselves as much as they value the relationship. This kind of respect is magnetic. Avoidants notice when someone is patient and understanding, but also firm in protecting their own emotional space. It tells them that the relationship isn't a trap or a game. It's a partnership where both people's needs are acknowledged and honored. Boundaries also help prevent the cycle of push and pull that so often defines avoidant empath dynamics. Without clear limits, empaths may find themselves overextending, constantly trying to meet the avoidant's fluctuating emotional needs or feeling responsible for their partner's comfort. Over time, this can lead to resentment and emotional burnout, which ironically undermines the very safety the avoidant is drawn to. By setting healthy boundaries, the empath ensures that their love remains sustainable, consistent, and genuine, which in turn reinforces the sense of security for the avoidant. Finally, boundaries are a tool for empowerment. They allow the empath to stay connected while honoring their own needs and desires. They transform the relationship from a source of anxiety into a space where both people can grow. For avoidants, this model of love is revolutionary because it provides the emotional safety they unconsciously crave while respecting their need for autonomy. The combination of consistent love and firm boundaries creates a dynamic where the avoidant feels free to return, to engage, and to explore intimacy at their own pace without fear of judgment or pressure. In essence, boundaries are the bridge between safety and freedom. They show the avoidant that connection doesn't have to be risky, and they remind the empath that love is not about sacrificing yourself to keep someone else in your life. This balance is what transforms the pull of safety from a confusing, unpredictable force into a powerful mutual experience of trust and growth. The most profound aspect of the avoidant-empath dynamic is that love is patient, not forceful. So often people think that relationships require chasing, persuading, or trying to fix someone in order to make them stay. But with avoidance, the exact opposite is true. They are drawn to love that doesn't pressure them, that doesn't demand constant proof or immediate closeness. The empath, who loves with patience, understands that connection is not about control, it's about presence. Showing up consistently, holding space for them, and allowing the relationship to unfold at its own pace is far more powerful than any push or pull tactic. Avoidants respond to calmness, to patience, to love that is steady and reliable because it creates a sense of safety they've rarely experienced. Patience is not passive waiting. It's an active practice of understanding and respecting the other person's emotional rhythms. It's about recognizing that an avoidant may need distance to process feelings or navigate internal anxieties, and allowing that space without taking it personally. The empath who masters this art creates an environment where the avoidant feels seen, understood, and unpressured. This approach contrasts sharply with relationships where frustration, pressure, or impatience dominate because such tactics only reinforce the avoidant's fears and cause them to retreat further. The key is that the calm, patient presence of the empath serves as an anchor, a consistent reminder that love can exist without fear, without manipulation, and without stress. Another aspect of patient love is emotional steadiness. Avoidants often experience love as a high-stakes, emotionally charged situation. They are hyper-aware of intensity and can easily feel overwhelmed by dramatic or reactive behaviors. Patient love, however, provides a grounding force. It communicates, you can be yourself, you can step back, pull away, or take your time, and it will be okay. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not demanding anything from you that you're not ready to give. That reassurance is transformative. It allows the avoidant to lower their defenses gradually, to explore intimacy without fear of suffocation, and to recognize that love doesn't always have to come with tension or anxiety. Patience also allows the empath to maintain their own clarity and self-respect. By refusing to chase or force the avoidant's feelings, the empath models a balanced, empowered approach to love. This balance is magnetic because it demonstrates that love can be both giving and boundary conscious. The avoidant senses that this person values themselves and respects their needs, which paradoxically draws them closer rather than pushing them away. It's a subtle but powerful dynamic. Patience builds trust, trust builds safety, and safety nurtures connection. Ultimately, patient love is about allowing the natural flow of the relationship to occur without trying to control the outcome. Avoidants are drawn to those who love in a way that feels safe, respectful, and steady. The absence of pressure, coupled with consistent care, creates a gravitational pull that feels almost irresistible. Love that is patient teaches both partners that intimacy doesn't have to be dramatic, love doesn't have to be anxious, and connection doesn't have to be forced. It's quiet, powerful, and deeply magnetic, creating the kind of bond that avoidants can feel even if they don't yet have the words to explain it. In the end, understanding why avoidants reconnect with the empath who loved them right is not about blame or frustration. It's about recognizing the profound power of safety, patience, and unconditional love in relationships. It's about honoring the delicate balance between giving space and offering steady support, and remembering that true connection thrives when both hearts feel secure and respected. Thank you all for taking the time to explore this fascinating dynamic with me, and for being open to seeing love not as a battle, but as a space where trust, understanding, and patience create the bonds that last.